Columbus prepared you enough for college, for UVM especially. They had so many opportunities, taking trips up to UVM, speaking with students that are already attending UVM.
It did prepare me, but then for another extent it didn't, because UVM was an unfamiliar place for me in terms of it was a predominantly white school, and I didn't know much about that type of environment. I mean, Columbus was in an urban environment, and UVM was in a totally different environment. So in that aspect, I don't think it prepared me fully to be at UVM.
That I felt among the partnership between Columbus and UVM was that it appeared that UVM was only recruiting students of color from the Bronx because they were trying to fulfill their minority quota. It was about numbers to them as opposed to the quality of the education. And that was kind of like my biggest issue with the school.
I think it helps a lot of minorities from, the city better themselves as individuals and, just overall, I think as humans we always want to better ourselves and do things for other people and help other people. So I think it's a great idea.
I felt like I lost my culture when I attended UVM. Like I said, when I first got there, I felt ashamed to be a person of color. I experienced things like amongst my first week there, I was walking down the block heading back to my dorm, and I passed a white woman on the street, and she had gotten off the sidewalk and into the street grabbing her purse as if I was going to rob her, and I never experienced things like that while I was in the Bronx.
I've told students from Columbus and other schools from all over the country that come to me as first years, and I would tell anyone else thinking about going to UVM to just, if you like it, stick with it, but if you feel like you're having a really hard time within your freshman year and you feel like you can't go through with it, find your resources and see what is available to you. If you feel like you need to transfer, then do that.
I struggled a lot with identity. That's the first time that I ever realized that I was a black person, and that sounds funny because it's like, you're black, you were born black. Like, how do you mean that that's the first time you realized that you were black? But I mean, when you're in an environment where everyone else is white and you're the black skin that's there, you notice it way more. And I mean, some people might say, why would you have a problem with that? But at the same time, it wasn't only about skin, it was culturally different. What I was used to in the Bronx, New York, wasn't what was happening in Burlington, Vermont, and that's something that I had to come to grips with.
Being at UVM, I did lose certain aspects of my culture, or I lost out on certain experiences because bringing certain things to the campus, it wasn't necessarily accepted by other higher programs such as IRA and the SGA and things like that. They never really jumped on a lot of our programs, and it was a constant struggle trying to get funds and support from different areas on campus. So.
And even being in a classroom where I felt isolated, or people weren't speaking to me because of where I was from, was a problem for me. I mean, going into the town sometimes, being called the N-word on different occasions, I mean, that did not make me feel welcomed at all.
It's a good experience because you deal with a lot of things in the Bronx that you don't have to deal with while you were in Vermont. Like, there's a bunch of pressure that we had to deal with growing up here that we didn't have to experience in Vermont. Like, Vermont was more laid back. We could actually feel the 24 hours go by in a day, as opposed to being in New York where time just flew by.
Are getting a little bit better of an opportunity than we did because there are more minorities and there are other resources popping up on campus, but you kind of have to dig for them and you have to get to know the right people out there. So actually finding resources and finding something that I was passionate about is what kept me at UVM, and I did realize within my junior year that I was learning things about myself that I probably wouldn't have learned had I stayed at home. So I do feel like at first I didn't want to be there, but in the ending it did help me in many ways, so I appreciate the opportunity of being able to go to UVM.
I don't regret going to UVM. I think it was a great idea. It's funny because UVM was kind of the last choice, but overall I think it was the best choice for me.
I learned a lot about myself, my community. It taught me to be a better person and to be more appreciative of myself and where I come from. You know, being a person of color from the South Bronx, going to UVM. At first, you know, I felt extremely inadequate about going there, but through the line of programs that they had there, it taught me to be proud of who I am as opposed to being ashamed of who I am.
I myself, and I've also seen other students struggle with depression being at UVM because they were having such a hard time and they didn't want to be there. They didn't know what to do, and they kind of stuck with it until it was too late to transfer because all of their credits wouldn't transfer over, so they're kind of just stuck being miserable. I would say as a first year or as an incoming student, just weigh your options, and if you feel like that isn't the place where you need to be, don't let anybody tell you that you have to stay or that's where you need to be.
I talked to other friends from other universities that, you know, friends that went to diverse universities, maybe even HBCUs, and they sound like they had a blast there. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like they learned as much as I did from the experiences that I had at UVM, and I really appreciate those things. Now that I look back on it, you know, I really appreciate going to the University of Vermont.